Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Forever Forward podcast. I'm Sid and I'm your co-host for this episode alongside Umesh. How's it going, Umesh?
Well, I don't think you're the co-host. Sid. You're the host. I'm the guest. That's how you make me feel. You make me do all the hard work. So I don't think it's fair when you say that you're the co-host. Just kidding. I'm good, man. I'm good. Going off on a vacation in a couple of days. So the spirits are high. Just looking forward for these 2 days to conclude.
Fair enough, fair enough. So without further ado, let's introduce the topic for the episode. We're going to talk about maintenance backlogs, which,
Mm,
according to my research and our discussions before, seem to
mm,
have become quite a universal problem for
mm,
teams running a planned or scheduled maintenance regime.
mm.
So the format of the episode is going to be the same as before. I'll ask you three
Okay,
questions,
perfect.
and it will be like a rapid fire round.
Makes
So
sense.
let's get down to business and start the show.
Absolutely. Let's do that.
So before I ask my first question, I'm going to throw some statistics your way.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at a report recently, which is the 2022 NHS Digital ERIC report. And according to this report, the cost of maintenance backlog across
Mm-hmm.
NHS England is
Mm-hmm.
now $10 billion.
Mm-hmm.
This figure has almost doubled since 2018, when it was
Right.
around the 6 billion mark.
Right.
And this number is possibly going to grow further.
Right.
So my first question to you is, why do you think the backlogs have skyrocketed in the last few years?
Oh, so thanks for the stats. I mean, I always knew that the backlogs were there, but the figure, this is for NHS at least in the UK,
Yeah.
itself is a very staggering number. $10 billion is not a small amount. Even if you discount it by 50%, and consider $5 million to be the true cost, I mean, it's still a huge number. Again, a disclaimer: I'm not a maintenance expert, so please take everything that I say from with a pinch of salt, and also everything is based on what we've acquired as a company. I, as an individual, over the last 3-4 years working with FM companies across different countries. And Sid, you're absolutely right. There is no one who we work with, and they are tier one FM companies as much as they are emerging FM companies, struggle with it, right? And or at least have this at the top of their agenda. Now, I think the reason what I've understood is obviously number one is point to be attributed to the resource availability, both from the availability of the individuals, but then also with the right set of skill sets. I think that's an issue. IFMA has flagged that. Most companies know it. So, unfortunately, that's not a tech problem to be solved. It's a deeper business problem to be solved. And there are different things that people are doing, and possibly we'll talk about that in the later half of the episode. But I guess there are two controllable aspects which I think can be looked at, and they are contributing to the problem. One is that as complexities have moved in, unplanned downtimes have also increased, which kind of take a toll on the planned activity. So when you start or budget for a facility, you say that you are probably going to allocate X hours for planned activities and maybe 20% or 30% of that for the unplanned activity. But as soon as the unplanned activities kind of go increasing, your number of people that you put on the number of hours bucket is the same. And then that takes precedence. And then the planned maintenance kind of goes into a backlog. And again, I think in an ideal situation, it's never going to happen that you will never have a backlog. But the point is what percentage of tasks you have in backlog. Is it growing week on week, month on month, or right? Or are there certain time frames when you have a very significant high backlog, so on and so forth? I'm coming back just from a trip in the UK, spent time with some of the FM companies. I can tell you that that is an issue, right? I mean, and not that FM leaders are not thinking about it, especially the ones which want to make sure that they get it right. And third, I think the entire back office support of planning, scheduling, and allocation of work orders hasn't changed over time. The process is still age old. I think that's my view, and I think that's something that's contributing. A lot of it is very reactive in nature. I mean, we've been talking about maintenance being reactive. I think a lot of our planning, strategic, and allocation is also very reactive in nature. So I think yeah. So long story short, these are the top three reasons why I think this is happening. There could be others, but these three, in my opinion, are the biggest contributors for the situation where we are in at this point in time.
Right. That's very interesting. Like when I looked at this report, I was interested to know about the flip side of the cost of maintenance backlogs. Like, what is the real cost of backlogs beyond these numbers, and what happens if companies don't address this problem as fast as possible?
Absolutely. And first, I mean, I haven't looked at the reports. I never had the time to do that. I will take a look at the report, but also I would encourage you to, whenever this post is going online, put a link to the report so that others can look at it as well. I think there are when the $10 billion would have been taken into consideration, the capital expenditure, the operational expenditure, everything must have been taken into consideration. So those are expected costs, which is in terms of reliability, in terms of energy, in terms of the resource that would be needed, and so on and so forth. What I'm more concerned about is the medium to long-term risks that service providers carry, or even the asset owners carry. Because what happens is when you get into a backlog, there, it's look at you and me, or every other individual. We have 50 things to do in our to-do list. What are we going to do? Most of the we are going to be like, just get them closed, like get them done. And what's going to happen at the end of the day? The quality is going to drop without a shadow of a doubt, right? Like if you have those 50 tasks playing on your background, your quality is going to drop. And that is what's probably happening, and that has a much bigger risk and cost associated, in my opinion, because it hinders your decarbonization agenda to a very large extent. And there's a lot of money you're pumping in for decarbonization. It puts a lot of assets, linked locations, into huge risk. Thermal comfort gets a beating. I mean, at the end of the day, everything that you expect that asset to do, it's reliably, it's not being able to do. And I think the quality drops. You then start to engage a lot of subcontractors. So even the FM company will now engage a subcontractor and say, get this work done. The processes do not allow a significant quality checkpoint to be in place. So for example, someone might be doing the task on their software. They might just mark it done on the core CMMS. The data flow, the process flow, the information symmetry, the audit trail, all of those are questionable to a very large extent. So I think that the overall cost is much more than that. For different stakeholders, and that's how I would sum it. It's difficult to put a pound or a dollar value, but it's almost like saying that the entire business or entire function is at risk. Now, I mean, what you do with that risk really depends on how you put a value to that risk is really depending upon the leadership. But there is a significant risk that's there, and that's outside of the costs that are already considered, which is the replacement cost, the life cycle cost, so on and so forth. They are there, what they are there, but the fact of the matter is that the operational cost and the lack of reliability, questionable reliability, everything else that is associated with it, in my opinion, is a much deeper cost. Something that I guess hinders both the service providers and the asset owners.
So with all the costs and risks involved, what are the strategies that teams can deploy to, I mean, first of all, minimize and then maintain that healthy percentage of backlogs?
Prevention is better than cure. So easier said than done. Best is not to get into that situation. And a shameless plug, Zempla can help you a lot in a site where you're newly mobilizing. Bring Zempla on. I'll probably put myself on the spot here, but we definitely guarantee you that, at least as far as the process is concerned, you're never going to get into a backlog, or at least you never complain that you don't have a heads up that things are going to get bad from the point of view of backlog. So, but coming back, I think, again, as I said, resource availability is a strategic thing that needs to be solved for skill and availability both. It's not a tech problem. Like Zempla or any other vendor can do absolutely nothing about that core problem. What we can do as partners is build a layer around it and say, how can we support the transition, which is what most of us are doing. And again, it's not just Zempla, other software providers that might be there in the space. I think the best strategy, apart from the implementing your overall hiring strategy in that space, is reduce the reactives and unplanned downtime. I think it's super duper important that you find a pathway to reduce reactives. as the, I mean, in a way, become more planned, become more planned is what. If there are more reactives that are happening, then you obviously don't consider them reactives anymore. Your interventions will by default be more planned. You're going to have more interventions. So that your entire budgeting needs to sort of take that into consideration, and hence the hiring and resource allocation, so on and so forth. I think the quality of the plant maintenance currently is questionable, and which is what contributes at some point in time to the fact that you're having more reactives. So I mean, I think we mentioned it in one of the episodes where we said that the scheduling allocation and the entire back office is up for significant change, and the hours that get free from there. I think I'll bring that point again. Those hours need to be pulled back into quality assurance, compliance, and ensuring that the adequate data is collected on every plant maintenance. One is time series data, operational data that can come from building management systems, IoT sources, so on and so forth. But it's super duper critical to also have what the measurements are while an engineer is doing an intrusive inspection or even an inspection or certain key parameters. What are they seeing? What are they hearing? That's absolutely important to find its way back into the knowledge repository, not happening right now. And I think the last point is going to be move to data-led or a business focus. There are different names people take, but at the end of the day, do that for non-critical assets on a rotational basis, and then eventually streamline it. Right? That has to be the way forward. That's one. And one last point is that a lot of processes and how data-led, how operations and maintenance is happening right now, I think should either be on autopilot or on copilot. Right, and all that hours you free up, because I've seen, say, you'll be surprised that the core engineer gets into so much of administrative stuff, which is mind-boggling. I mean, and saying, why is it even that person having to do? And it's important. Those things are important. For example, if you're going to go to a critical location, you need to do something. That area needs to be available. If it's not, then you're going to have certain documentations to be done, so on and so forth. So there is this entire opportunity to look at those processes and sort of automate them, make them happen on a digital way, all with an effort of freeing up loads of hours, which can again go back to core engineering, in my opinion. So I think these are like 4 steps that I think can be taken. None of them are going to give you immediate results. They're definitely going to give you results over a medium to long term. And that is why I say it's absolutely important. If you have a 3-year, if you have a 20-year contract, 10-year contract, you have time to stabilize, or probably maybe you also get super duper comfortable. But if you have a 3-year contract, the cost of not doing well is the fact that no matter how much low you bid the next time, there are chances that someone else is going to bid lower, and you're never going to get to retain that rebate. I've seen that last, like, up till the previous 6 months, a number of prospects, people I've known, companies I've known, not being able to put rebates in place, which are winning rebates. So in my opinion, this is something that should be right there as a part of onboarding a new facility that they're onboarding, or if you're in an existing facility, you give yourself the time to do all these 4 things, which hopefully can solve the problem that the FM companies run into as far as backlogs is concerned.
That's all the questions for this episode, but I would like to sum up everything from our conversation and leave our listeners with some thinking and some takeaways to take from this episode.
Okay. So you want me to do that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. One is obviously don't get into the backlog. Easier said than done. I mean, maintain it within a healthy sort of a percentage. It's always going to be there. I don't think a lot of companies are budgeting hours from that perspective. Budget hours. I think I would even go to the extent of saying budget the planned and unplanned hours of different resources on every asset. Take that condition into play. That's like a super duper effort on planning, but that's where you need to be, and that's where your planning team needs to be. Second is go data-led, go O&M, data-led O&M for non-critical assets, move things around on a rotational basis and then streamline them. Fourth is automate processes that can be automated, remove or reduce to a large extent the non-engineering processes that the engineers are involved in, and free up those hours to go back to core engineering that needs to go back. All of this are supportive to the wider hiring and retention strategy that organizations must be working on as far as engineering team members are concerned. And that is in combined effort, a pathway to reduce the maintenance backlogs and ultimately get it to a point where it's strategically okay to have that kind of a backlog. So that's the summary for the listeners.
Very nicely done.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're at the end of the episode, and hope this was a great conversation for our listeners. And also keep listening. Stay tuned for more episodes on the Forever Forward podcast. See you in the next one.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye bye.